In Australia, we actually have more children in care per head of population than any other country in the world. I don't know what's going wrong. I don't know what it is that we've done that has resulted in so many kids needing out-of-home care, but that's the statistics. And as long as the numbers are that big, we're going to be short carers. And as long as the numbers are that big, kids are going to be tossed from one home to another to another. And that's really unfortunate. We need more carers, but we're not going to get them if the perception is going to stay the way it is. When I first became a carer, I was so excited. I bonded with my kids straight away. I was just so ready to have these children in my home. And my biological children at the time were so ready for it too. So it was great for our family. You know, you tend to get mixed reactions from the public. So some people would say things like, oh wow, aren't you wonderful? Look at you, you know, blah, 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 which you don't want to hear because you're not doing it to be wonderful. You're doing it because you want to just help a child. Or you'd hear things like, I would never do that to my children. So people would either think you were a saint or they would think that you were a sinner based on the decision to do that.
I think the most misleading public perception is that all you need is love. With the advertising, and I get that you know, we need foster carers, it makes it look really easy. And I think that's very misleading because it is not easy. It's not the same.
So when I was younger, I had quite the idyllic family, except my dad and mum both liked to abuse alcohol a little bit, and my father became rather angry and abusive a lot of the time. My mum decided one day that this wasn't the way kids should grow up, we shouldn't be moving schools every week. So she left the refuge we were at one day and just didn't come back. And then docs came to get us because, you know, she wasn't there anymore.
Society is driven by the negative things, you know, and even if you think about how you deal with compliments versus criticism yourself. If you think of a child as a piggy bank, and every time you say something nice to that child to build them up, you're putting in a coin. But as soon as someone says something negative, it's like pulling the cork out of the bottom of the piggy bank. The fact that there's been 100 other nice things said means nothing because the one negative thing is what stands out in your mind. And that's what happens with the perception of foster care too. The media puts up one bad story and that's what everyone talks about and that's what everyone focuses on, rather than all of the good stuff that never gets said. I had a conversation not long ago with a colleague, and within the first 15 minutes, it was really clear to me that she was very anti-foster care and very negative about foster carers. And I had to stop her, and I said, you do know that I am a foster carer. And she goes, well, you're not the norm. And I said, no, I'm not the stereotype. The stereotype is not the norm.
Foster care to me used to be, you know, kids who lost their parents and get fostered out or get adopted, and never looked behind the scene any further. But when suddenly I got confronted with it, it just opened a world to me I did not know about. I didn't have a clue what was going on behind in the foster care system. And I just often wondered, does the general public care?
The way that the system is run is very much from a system perspective, and until the systems actually reflect what's best for the child across the board, from decisions to remove or reunite to decisions about permanency planning, until we start actually looking at the child and not looking at the politics and not looking at all those other things around it, we're not going to be making the right decisions.
There was a chunk of my life where I was spending my school holidays leading on camps that I'd gone to as a kid. where foster kids go along. And I developed some really close relationships with a lot of the girls I was leading because I saw something in them that I think I had myself. There was this chance that they could beat the statistics, they could become what they wanted, and I was like gunning for these kids. Like I was so excited to see them grow up. You know, I'd go to every camp and, you know, they just seemed like they were going to make it. They were going to break the cycle they were in. And then one year I found out that one of them had died. She'd had a drug overdose, and I decided that I couldn't keep doing these camps. I couldn't keep seeing these kids fall through the cracks, fall into this cycle, and just kind of be forgotten about and just be another part of this whole foster care system that's been failing.
There's more than 50,000 kids in care in Australia, and 1/3 of those children are Aboriginal. And that's really disconcerting given that the Aboriginal population in Australia only makes up 2%. And the policies that have been put in place to protect Aboriginal kids in care often discriminate against them as well and prevent them from finding permanency and stability. And so a lot of changes need to happen. Education can really help remove stigma because it will bring about perceptual change. Unfortunately, it's really hard to change perception. That's one of the hardest things to do, is to take society and to change the way that they perceive things. But I think that the more people who understand the kids in care and the people who love those kids and look after those kids, the less stigma will be there. It's more of a matter of these issues aren't going to go away. They're there, and it's helping the children learn how to deal with their own issues and function in a society that just doesn't understand them.
I got bullied a little bit in school because, like, oh, well, no one loves you. You know, you don't live with your parents, no one loves you. And it was like, what? That's not actually how it works. Like, my carers, they love me. Like, that's why I'm there, sort of thing. If there was some talk about like more child safety in schools, like, I think that could be great. Like, talking about what their parents should and shouldn't do with them to get them thinking about, you know, child safety more when they're younger, and realise that why kids have been taken away. I think too often we see the aftermath. We see, you know, TV shows about young women in prison. We see the homeless on the street begging for change. We don't see the kids. We don't see why they're in care. We don't see the process. We just kind of see what they do and where they end up and judge them on that.
And something to be remembered in the middle of all of this is the kids don't like being labelled. The kids don't want to feel different. They want to be normal kids. They want to be able to say, I want to get my ears pierced. Mom, can I get my ears pierced? And get an answer. Not, well, honey, I'll have to call the caseworker, and then the caseworker's on leave, so we'll have to wait till she's back from leave, and then we'll contact the casework manager, and then they'll probably want to contact your biological parents to see if that's okay. What kind of message does that send to the children? That tells the children we're second-class citizens. And it's not the carer who's communicating that, but it's coming via the carer who's saying, I'm sorry, we can't make this decision yet. So it destroys the relationship between the carer and the children.
I think the most concerning thing, I guess, about like foster care and the way the public sees it is that the public doesn't see it, except for, you know, an ad on the TV about becoming a carer or a little, you know, ad on your shopper docket. There's not much around there unless you know someone or you are someone who's been affected by foster care. You're not going to know much, because kids in care, once they, you know, age out of care, they kind of drop off. They kind of go and do their own thing. Statistically, a lot of them end up homeless, jobless, addicted to drugs. Legally, kids in foster care are the government's children. That's the thing too. You're in state care. Your care is by the state. So for them to be so flippant about kids once they turn 18 is like really sad. Like, you know, we're their kids. So I think that if there were more programs to kind of teach kids leaving care these things that they, you know, most kids, their peers can just go home to mum and dad to ask, would be really good. I remember turning 18, leaving home, having so many friends, but still feeling like I didn't have support. I still felt like I was on my own. And I think that feeling of being on your own is really terrifying. Like I fell quite hard into mental illness within my first year of leaving care because I felt so alone, and I had all these things. I was now learning about how all the things that I'd experienced were pretty bad and I shouldn't have gone through them, and seeing how they were impacting me now as an adult. like really hit me hard, and I didn't feel like I had people to turn to, no matter how many people I had to turn to. So I think programs that have support people built in are going to be really beneficial and will help bring those statistics that we see right down and give these foster kids like a better chance at being an adult they're happy with and they're proud of.
Foster care is a part of our investment in future generations. Those of us with children and families, we care for our children, we want the best for them because we know, although sometimes we need to be reminded, that they're the future. And the children who are in the foster care system are just as much a part of that future, because these kids are just as incredible as, you know, one's own children.
The work and the effort that you're putting in makes a difference in the lives of the children that need it. It's worth it. They're worth it.
I think a lot of people just assume that kids are just it's this cycle we can't break. So there's no point in trying. You know, there's no point investing money, time, effort, our homes into looking after these kids. Kids in care are worth it. They're worth the money it takes to house them. They're worth looking after once they turn 18. Like, there's kids out there with real potential that aren't meeting that because they're stuck in this cycle of care. We could be epic if we had the support, if we had what we needed, if we got what every other kid our age had. That's all we really need. You know, we're worth that.
It takes a village to raise a child. I really believe that. We've got carers, we've got extended family, we have caseworkers, we have lawyers, we have psychologists, we have medical professionals, lots of people involved. But in those situations, the person who's going to know what's best for the child is the person who's there every day, the one who can actually see how the child is reacting to the decisions that are made. And so it might take a lot of people to raise a child, but they need to be listening to that primary caregiver in order to make the right decisions. So we need to make sure that everyone is involved. It comes from taxpayers, it comes from city zoning, it comes from the decisions that we're making in terms of where the funds go in education. So when we say it takes a village, we really mean everyone, not just the people who are in direct contact with those kids.
I've probably experienced more families than anyone ever will in their life. I thought there was this perfect family, and I'd see my friends who had perfect families and be like, why didn't I get that? But then I realised, like, there's really no such thing. Like, every family is so different. One thing actually was the hardest part about foster care, quite honestly, was doing the washing, because I would get yelled at by every family for doing the washing wrong. But it was like, at the last place, like, this was right. This was the right way to hang them out. You hang them out, you know, by the collar. Oh, no, you're hanging out from the bottom here. No, you fold it in half here. No, we do them inside out here. There's so many different ways to hang the washing. And that's kind of like, you know, a bit indicative of, you know, how different all families are. They have different rules. They have different, you know, family histories. They discipline differently. They love differently. And I hear the word family and I think I'm really blessed to have the family I have today, because they love me. And, you know, I may not have been born into their family, I may not have the same colour hair or eyes, but like, I know that when my car is being a piece of crap, I'll call my dad. It doesn't matter that, you know, he wasn't there when I was born, he's my dad now, and that's all that matters. And I know he'll walk me down the aisle one day. And I'm so excited to have my own family where I, you know, can set up the rules for myself, and I can decide how the washing gets hung and decide, you know, how we love.